Okay, so I have started the recording. So let me present my screen. Still, we can wait for 2 more minutes, but till that, I will share my screen. Sure. Thanks for the consent. Okay, so I hope everybody can see my screen, right?
Yes, Jackie, we can.
Okay, okay. So guys, this is our 25th Surat MuleSoft Meetup, and in today's meetup, we will going to discuss about Anypoint platform and MuleSoft capabilities. So what are the different components and what are the capabilities provided by Anypoint platform? And apart from that, we will also going to see Anypoint VPC, VPN dedicated load balancer, and also a new feature recently introduced by MuleSoft, that is a transit gateway. So that is very important component has been introduced as a part of Anypoint platform. So we will going to discuss about that also, and we will also see a demonstration on how to create VPC and dedicated load balancer, and also we will see one demonstration on API auto discovery and API proxy, and what is the difference between API proxy and API auto discovery. Okay, and apart from that, we will also see some of the operational model or like deployment capabilities provided by the MuleSoft. So we will going to see with some of the use cases. Okay, so myself Jitendra is the organizer for the Surat MuleSoft meetup, and Nitish is the he is also co-leader for Surat MuleSoft meetup. Yeah, Nitish, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Jackie. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Nitish Jain. I'm MuleSoft certified developer and integration architect, and I'm having experience around 3 years in MuleSoft, and I'm working for IBM. Welcome, everyone.
Nitish, also if you can share a count link now or pin code on the chat bar, so people will join right now. But we can start the queues later. Will it be fine?
Uh, I don't think so, Jackie, because the
Is there
session
any
will not
time
get.
timeout on that?
Yeah. Because
Okay, no
I'll
issue.
do
We
one
will.
thing. I'll share the link, but once
Yeah,
we are done with session, then I'll start the session and I'll share the pin. Would be fine.
sure, sure.
Okay.
So yeah, so speaker for today meetup is myself. So basically, I have overall 13 plus years of experience in integration and API technology. I am a MuleSoft ambassador and the Surat and Nasik MuleSoft meetup leader. I have published over like 300 plus YouTube videos on MuleSoft and 150 plus articles on the MuleSoft and Anypoint platform. I have expertise in the setting up MuleSoft platform, which include Cloud Hub, hybrid implementation, runtime fabric manager, or like customer roasted Mule runtime. Also, I have expertise in API led connectivity and event driven architecture. And apart from that, I have expertise in integration, application integration with various systems like Salesforce, NetSuite, ERP, Snowflake, databases, SAP, and much more than that. And I have I am also part of the various strategic decision where like how we can do the migration from on premise to cloud hub, migrating from lower version to higher version of mule time. So I have been like define various roadmap and various strategy for doing such kind of migration basically. Yeah. Okay, so we will have an introduction. We will discuss about Anypoint platform capabilities. Then we will discuss about Anypoint VPC, VPN, dedicated load balancer, and the transit gateway. So transit gateway is the one of the feature has been recently introduced by MuleSoft. Then we will see what is difference between API proxy and API auto discovery, and when to use API proxy, when to use API auto discovery. Then finally we will have a live demonstration. Then we will follow up with a trivia quiz. Okay, so let's start. What is a MuleSoft? So basically, MuleSoft is a company having the headquarter in San Francisco, California. So that provide integration software to connect application, data, or device, right? So it provide a integration platform which can be used to connect your application, data, or devices. So initially in 2006, it was known as a MuleSource, and it was founded by Ross Mason and the Dave Rosenberg. In 2009, the MuleSource has been renamed to MuleSoft, and like they have come up with a new integration, new platform which is known as Anypoint platform, which provide iPaaS capability, integration platform as a service capability. Initially, a MuleSoft is like providing a messaging and middleware capabilities. Later, like MuleSoft come up with a new product, a web-based product, which is Anypoint platform, and which provide the iPaaS capabilities basically. Okay, so I will ask one question: what does iPaaS means basically? It's an integration platform as a service. So what does this mean basically? Anyone? So iPaaS is nothing like no. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Somebody
sure
is
if
saying
that
something.
is right actually, but to my knowledge, see, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS are something confined to cloud, but iPaaS is something beyond that. Maybe we can integrate something within the cloud and then on premise. So,
Okay. So no, iPaaS is something like you get. So basically, you like when you deploy the application, right? So you don't have to worry about all your servers, all like patching of the servers. Like you don't have to worry about anything. Like MuleSoft will provide the platform basically where you can go and deploy the application. MuleSoft will provide a platform in cloud where you can deploy your integration, where you can deploy your API. You don't have to worry about your server, like you don't have to worry about the infrastructure, or like all application will work in isolated mode. So this is nothing, this is the iPaaS basically. So when you work with serverless architecture or managed service, this is something called iPaaS basically. Can you enable my mic? Yeah, Chandra Prakash, I will do that. Nitish, can you enable the Chandra Prakash mic? Okay. So like oh, so in 2013, MuleSoft acquired a programmable web. In 2016, MuleSoft was ranked number 20 on the Forbes Cloud 100 list. And also in 2017, they have filed the IPO and started trading in New York Stock Exchange. And later, MuleSoft in 2018 was acquired by Salesforce basically. So now MuleSoft is the Salesforce company basically. Let understand few of the components basically. So like when we talk about Anypoint platform, so Anypoint platform comes with many component. So one is the design center. So design center is nothing where you can start designing or writing your API using raml or open API specification. Even it also provide the capability where you can write a flows basically, a design flow in your design center basically, right? So Anypoint Exchange, everybody knows like what is Anypoint Exchange. Anypoint Exchange is nothing, it's a repository hub where you can publish your templates, like you can publish your like common frameworks, ramls, APIs and all those things. Apart from that, it also come up with predefined connectors, like preloaded connectors, preloaded templates, preloaded accelerators, those kind of things. Apart from that, also you can deploy some of the common error handling framework, logging framework, which can be reused across the multiple projects basically. Then comes to Runtime Manager. So Runtime Manager is, it's nothing where like it's a place where you can go and deploy or your application, and you can manage the life cycle of your application basically. So if you want to check the logs of your application, you make use of Runtime Manager. If you want to deploy your application, you can deploy the application in Runtime Manager basically. Apart from that, you can create alerts, Anypoint virtual private cloud, dedicated load balancer, virtual private network in Runtime Manager. Then comes to API Manager. API Manager is nothing, it's a API Manager basically used to manage the life cycle or entire life cycle of your API basically. So generally, so once you design your API, you generally publish your API into an API manager. So where you can manage the life cycle of your API. So also you can secure the API, you can control the traffic of the API basically. You can enable the analytics for your API. So those kind of things can be taken care at the API manager. Then the one of the important components comes, that is the access management. So it's a platform governance component. So where you can define the users, you can define the roles for the users, you can enable the identity management, you can enable the multi-factor authentication, you can enable the client management. So those kind of things can be taken care at access management. You can enable the SAML 2.0 based authentication, open ID connect based authentication, those kind of things. You can also enable a dynamic client registration. You can manage the subscription, you can create a business group. Everything can be done at access management. So recently there is a one more feature MuleSoft added as a part of Anypoint platform, that is Anypoint data graph. So basically Anypoint data graph has been built with like from the concept of GraphQL basically. So where you can unify your multiple API into a single data service basically. So so this is the component recently introduced by the MuleSoft. Okay. So apart from that, there are some few important features provided by MuleSoft, like worker and the worker size. So worker is nothing; it's a dedicated instance of a runtime engine that run your integration application on the cloud. Up. What does this mean? So what happens when you deploy your application? Generally, anybody knows that. So when you deploy your application in cloud, up, what will happen? Anybody?
Uh,
Guys, I want to make this session interactive. If anybody can tell me, I'm trying to deploy my application into cloud hub. I select one worker, and worker size equals to zero point 0.1 vcore. What will happen in the background?
um,
Right.
Hi, Jitendra. Sorry, I was going to speak something, but I didn't want to interrupt somebody as well. I think somebody else want to speak, so I'll just
No,
quickly.
you can go
Yeah.
on. No issue.
So,
No issue.
yeah, I mean, so I think if we try to deploy, and as soon as we hit the deploy button, I mean, then I think one worker is trying to deploy the code, but at the same time, one worker is active, and keeping the code alive. And as soon as we, the first worker gets a green signal from the one worker that okay, the code is already deployed and is up and running, then the other worker switches off, and that's why I think it's called 100% availability.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So let's consider this is something when you are modifying your API or you are redeploying the API. Let's consider I'm not selecting two workers also. I'm selecting only one worker and zero point 0.1 vcore. I want to deploy a new application. So what will happen in the background?
So first step is that since all these MuleSoft applications run on AWS server, a new AWS EC2 instance will be established. Okay, within internally, and that will be having how a Docker works. As similar to that, we will have a new runtime instance established inside the base. And then the application, the jar file will be uploaded to the bin directory of the AWS EC2 instance of where the runtime is present. And then the memory allocation will be done by the MuleSoft to give exactly like how we have in on-prem, we have this conf file. Similarly, they will establish a conf. And then a 0.1 worker, a 500 MB space memory will be allocated for this particular application. And this application will be established, and then it will be on the VPC on it.
Yeah, you are right, but let me explain once again. Like Deep, you are also correct. So basically when you deploy the application on two workers, you are also correct, and Ramchandran, you are also correct. So generally what happen when you try to deploy your application, right? So on one worker, so what happen, it will create a EC2 instance on the background. So it will create a virtual machine on AWS that is known as EC2 instance. Then it will deploy a Mule runtime on that. Okay, so it will set up a Mule runtime. Then on the top of Mule runtime, it will deploy your application basically. So that's how it happens, in the background basically. Then it will allocate a dynamic IP address to your EC2 instance basically. So that is how the things works in the background. Okay, it's simple. So depending on how much vcores you are selecting, so it will allocate a heap size and the memory base heap size and the storage basically. Okay, so if you are selecting 0.1 vcore, so it will it will allocate at around 8 GB I think, and 500 MB of storage basically. 500 MB of 8 GB of storage and 500 MB of heap size basically. So that is what allocation happens in the background. Any question on this? So I hope everybody is clear, right? So that is what happened in the background. So thanks Deep Ranjan and Ramchandran for answering this. So generally worker is nothing, it's a dedicated instance, so which where you deploy a Mule runtime and you finally deploy the application on that. Okay, so worker size, it's nothing, it's a size, so how much memory or how much storage you are allocating to your worker basically. So that is the worker size. So these are the worker size allocated. So by the minimum you have to allocate 0.1 vcore. So you have to allocate 0.1 vcore if you are selecting two workers and 0.1 vcore as a memory. So you are allocating zero point 0.1 vcore to one worker, zero point 0.1 vcore to two second worker, so it will be overall 0.2 vcores basically. So maximum you can allocate up to 16 vcores basically. So 0.1 vcore is a minimum, and maximum 16 vcore, where you can get heap size of 32 GB and storage of 328 GB. Also, like Deep Ranjan has explained, like zero downtime updates. So whenever like you are redeploying the application, the previous instance never removed basically, it will be there. So what will happen in that case, the previous instance will run as it is till new deployment doesn't complete. So in new deployment, what will happen, it will create a new EC2 instance. Okay, it will deploy mule runtime, it will deploy the application. Once the everything is done, so what will it will do, it will like remove the like old EC2 instance, the where like we have a previous application, and like then assign a load balancer to the new EC2 instance. So that is how it happened. So it's a zero downtime updates. Also, you can achieve horizontal scaling and the vertical scaling. So generally in Cloud Hub, you can increase the number of workers. So if you are deploying application on one worker, so if you want to do the horizontal scaling, you can just ensure, you can like ensure that you increase the number of worker to 2 or 3 or 4 depending on the traffic basically. Vertical scaling, in that case, you are increasing the size of your worker. So basically you are increasing the cores of your. So by default your application is on zero point 0.1 vcore, and like and like your application is on like, and then you want to do vertical scaling, you are increasing your worker size to 0.2 vcores. Now I have a question, when you will go for horizontal scaling and when you will go for vertical scaling?
Horizontal scaling is like, for example, right? Let's say that you are doing on the night of a deployment. Okay, there's a huge you're going to process a huge set of halo, like kind of a million records, because it's the first time you implemented a project. It's going to be having a millions of records are going to come. So you know that number of requests is going to come heavy actually. So that time, what you need to do, it's an HTTP request. So that time you scale horizontally. That means the more the number of listeners for you, the more the number of workers, so more the number of concurrent requests you can process. But
Correct.
on the same time, actually, let's say another scenario where we have a huge file is coming for you on the day of deployment. This is the first time the partner system is sending you a huge CSV file or an Excel file saying that, oh, this is a 1 GB file, you need to process it. Then that time you are not going to have this scenario every time. Then that time you need to vertically scale your application to have like more space for that to process a heavy memory application.
Correct. So basically, whenever you want a more space, like whenever you want to like process the message of higher size, right? So you can go for vertical scaling, and whenever you want to process like more number of requests, then you can go for horizontal scaling, right? Yeah, Ramchandra, you are correct. So that is the logic behind a vertical scaling and the horizontal scaling. Then it comes to auto scaling. So basically, Cloud Hub also provide one feature. By default, this feature is not enabled. So you have to go for the higher version of license to have this feature. So where you can do the auto scaling. So you can define the policy on Runtime Manager or for that particular application. If the CPU or memory usage is greater than 80% for next 10 minutes, so you can add more workers or you can increase the worker size. So those kind of things can be done automatically. Like you can define the policy. In case if your CPU is lower than 70% for 10 minutes, you can like scale down basically. Either you can scale up, you can increase the number of workers, or like you can scale down, or like you can decrease the number of workers. So that kind of policies or rules can be defined as a part of auto scaling. Then I comes to intelligent healing. So by default, like MuleSoft provide the feature that is known as intelligent healing. So what does this mean? Intelligent healing means like in case your application got crashed or like got shut down, so MuleSoft will try to auto recover that application, will try to auto restart that application basically. So those kind of things will be automatically taken care at a platform level. You don't have to do the any manual intervention. This will be automatically taken care by MuleSoft basically. If your other possibility is that, so generally when you deploy the application, you select the region. Each region has a 3 availability zone. So your application might be deployed in one of the availability zone, right? So if you are selecting one worker, so in case if one of the availability zone goes down, so your MuleSoft will try to recover that application in another availability zone. So those kind of things automatically taken care at a platform, so you don't have to worry about those things. So that is the intelligent healing. So we will talk about some MuleSoft capability. I know like most of the people knows that, but still we will discuss once. So as we are aware, MuleSoft is a multi-tenant integration platform as a service for connecting your data, application, and integration. And also MuleSoft allow you to easily integrate with any system or services for exchanging the data. So as you are aware, MuleSoft provide a lot of connectors or lot of templates so that you can easily connect your data and application, or you can easily exchange the data with any third party systems, right? So that is very straightforward. But what are the different advantages we are getting? So you can connect any application, data, or devices. So it provided more than 200 300 connectors, so you can make use of that. It can automate your business processes. So basically, if you want to sync the record between Salesforce and NetSuite, if you want to sync the account data between NetSuite and Salesforce, you can simply define a business process, or that will automatically sync the data between two systems. Then you have a API integration, so it also do the application integration. It can be also used for data integration like ETL and ELT kind of things. So extract, transform and load, or extract, load and transform. So it can also use for those kind of capability. So basically you can also design, deploy, manage, and secure your APIs. So basically you can make use of design center and API manager for achieving this particular steps. So generally it's nothing, you are managing your life cycle of your API. It also provide like wide range of out of box or OOTB connectors. So like to connect any system like SAP, Salesforce, NetSuite, and data. It comes you design and deploy application once, and that can be deployed to any environment. Like it can be deployed to Cloud Hub, Runtime Fabric Manager, customer hosted Mule Runtime. So in MuleSoft, like, so whatever application you are deployed right in your Anypoint Studio, that can be deployed in any operational model, or like can be Cloud Hub, or can be customer hosted Mule Runtime, Runtime Fabric. Okay, it also support all the integration patterns like message routing, message enrichment, scatter, gather, content based routing, JMS. With JMS, it also comes with like request reply pattern, reliability pattern, guarantee delivery, persistent delivery, those kind of thing. It also support integration architecture styles like API led connectivity, microservices, domain driven design, event driven architecture. It have a full support for Maven, so you can manage the full life cycle of Maven, or full life cycle of deployment using the Maven, for MuleSoft application. It support the deployment using the external tool like Jenkins, Azure, DevOps, Circle, CI, GitLab, like GitHub Action, those kind of things. Okay, so what are the strengths? Now we will talk about some strengths of the MuleSoft. Any question till now? Okay, no question. So let me go back there. What are the different
Uh,
strengths of MuleSoft?
Sorry to interrupt, Jackie.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
Nitish.
Chandra Prakash was asking one question. Can you uh, briefly explain some more for heap memory? You said earlier, right? He was asking.
Where I haven't seen Chandra Prakash's
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. It's quite.
No, Chandra Prakash's question is not there. N- Have he asked to you only, or he have asked me also?
No, no. In
Because
general, he asked because there are lots of chat messages. So it got.
so what was the question?
Can you explain like more brief on heap memory?
Okay, so generally, like heap is nothing like you are allocating memory to your Java virtual machine, to your JVM basically, right? So like your Mule runtime runs on the top of JVM. No, no, sorry, not JVM runs on the top of your Mule runtime, and you are allocating some space to JVM basically. You are saying I'm allocating 500 MB to my JVM, right? So like if you are getting the request more than like 500 MB, like if you're like your JVM is capable of accepting requests till 500 MB. If any request come after like like more than 500 MB, so it will reject it basically, right? So heap size is nothing. It's nothing. It's a allocation of a memory to your Java virtual machine, that basically. Okay, so number of requests increases, like number of message size increases, you need to increase your heap size basically. Okay, so but for increasing the heap size on Mule runtime or for on Cloud Hub, you have to increase your vCores basically. Okay, Okay, so as you are aware, MuleSoft has been recognized as a leader for sixth time in 2020 Magic Quadrant for iPaaS, basically integration platform as a service, and also it has been named as a leader for fifth consecutive time in 2020 for Gartner in API Manager, or basically in API management capability. As you are aware, MuleSoft provide more than 200 connectors. We already discussed to connect any system anywhere, basically. It also provide XML and Java SDK for writing the custom connectors. So it provides this software development kit which you can use to write a custom connector. And like it also provide a various policy for controlling the traffic, which is rate limiting, spike control. Then it also comes with some security policy like JWT validations, like basic authentication, client ID enforcement policy. It have a great capability for B2B management and partner management. It have a full support for Maven lifecycle and provide many core components to implement the enterprise integration patterns. So MuleSoft already provided lot of core components, which include scatter gather for for implementing multicast pattern, for choice router for implementing the content based routing. We have a JMS connectors for implementing the JMS messaging patterns. So those kind of things is available with MuleSoft. MuleSoft provide various deployment options, so you can deploy application to cloud up, like customer hosted Mule runtime. With like it, we can also do the hybrid implementation. We can also do the runtime fabric manager, which is Kubernetes based. With MuleSoft, you can write a API with low code or sometimes with a no code also. Okay, an API can be developed at a various lightning speed, and it support many architectural styles or architecture patterns, which include microservices, domain driven API led connectivity. And it also it provide a great Anypoint monitoring capability, which is for monitoring the APIs and retrieving the real-time metrics and insight. So you can monitor memory uses, CPU uses, number of requests failed, response time, request time. So those kind of things you can check in Anypoint monitoring. MuleSoft application can be deployed in the 12 different regions. So 4 regions available in US, 4 in Europe, few regions in Australia, one of the region in Australia, Brazil, in Canada. So that, and also I think it's in Japan, I think one of the region. So we have some region in Asia Pacific also. It have a robust enterprise security enforcement capability. It have a built-in high availability and the clustering. It also provide the options for data security and various encryption and decryption algorithm like JC, PGP, XML. It have a use support or good support for one-way SSL and two-way SSL authentication. Okay, we will discuss about API Manager. So what API Manager does? So API Manager is it's a component of an Anypoint platform which manage the life cycle of your API and secure the API using the policy. And also you can do the traffic control using API Manager. So it manages the API lifecycle. You can secure the API by applying the security policies like IP whitelisting, blacklisting, JWT validation policy, client ID enforcement. So we sometimes we talk about security at a edge, right? So you can secure your API at a edge using API Manager policies. You can also enable API alerts and API analytics. Also, you can enable the API proxy or proxy existing SOAP services, or create new APIs from OS and the YAML definition. So generally, if you have a non-MuleSoft APIs and you need to enable the or API governance on the top of that, you can proxy that API basically. Okay, unlock the application data microservices with a API gateway. Then we talk about the access management already. So, yeah, any question?
Yeah, I have one question that I just want to clarify my doubt. So let's say
Hmm.
so we have deployed one integration application in Cloud Hub using the 0.1 weaker version and one worker size, and
Hmm.
we also have did some security concerns in the API management,
Hmm.
security constraints. So
Hmm.
if we go for multiple worker size, let's say we want to go for two worker size, so
Hmm.
this the same thing will be applied for the for the all the versions that what we have made in the API management for the security constraints, or do we have to
No,
consider?
no, I haven't got your question actually. So I haven't what API constraint you are like. Can you repeat once again so I can answer this question? I
So
got the question partially, but I haven't
yeah.
got the full.
So what I'm assuming is like when we say workers increasing the worker size, it increases the instance size, right, in the cloud.
No work. Yeah, yeah. It increasing the storage and heap size basically. Correct.
Instances.
Instances. Yeah,
Instances.
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, instances.
So
So
size, then it is increasing the like computing resources like heap size and the memory. If you are saying instance, if you are saying workers, like number of, if you are increasing the number of worker, then it will increasing the instances, right?
yeah. If we increase the instances by using the
Hmm.
workers,
Hmm.
so so initially I go for point one v core and one worker, and I deployed one application in Cloud Hub, and I did some
Hmm.
security constraints in the API management. So later
Oh, no, 1 minute.
I
You apply some security policies on
yeah
API manager, correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes. So now it's good for, because there is only one instance, and it's working well with me with this all the configurations. Now I
Hmm.
would like to increase one more instance.
Okay.
So the same security constraints or security configurations applied for the earlier will be the same, or do we
Yes.
have to consider anything here?
No, no, nothing. If you are putting 4 workers, okay, doesn't matter. Whatever like whatever policy you apply to API manager, it will apply to all the 4 instance. Okay, so you don't have to do any manager. Even you are doing horizontal or vertical scaling, there will be no changes in API manager. Okay, Sridhar, you don't have to do
Yeah.
anything.
And one
It
more
will
dot, and there won't be any URL changes, right? Also for the increasing the
no, no, no,
instances.
no, no, no,
So all
no.
things will be taken care by API management, right?
Correct, correct. Not API management like runtime manager, basically. Okay. If you are talking about proxy URL, that in that case, yeah, that will be taken by API manager, basically. Okay. So you don't have, there will be no change in URL. There, you don't have to apply any extra policy for other instance. That how it doesn't work. Okay. So by default, whatever policy you apply to one worker, that will automatically get applied to all the other workers also. Okay. So you don't have to like you don't have to worry about those things also.
Yeah, thank you very much for clarifying my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we will go with access management. So we already talk about the access management. Basically, access management as it's a basically used for platform governance and for platform security. Okay, it comes with lot of features basically. Like you can easily integrate with identity provided like Azure IDP, Okta IDP, or any OpenEM IDP for identity management. You can also integrate with OAuth 2.0 identity provider like Okta being OpenAI for dynamic client registration, client management. It also come up with a various multi-factor authentication, and also we have a something called connected apps for authentication and authorization. You can manage your business group and subscription basically. Or subscription means licensing. You can set up the multi like roles, and you can create a new roles and you can assign to users. There are many predefined roles by default. You can manage the environment, and then finally you can also do the user management. So those kind of things can be done in the access management. Then we already talk about the Anypoint data graph. So Anypoint data graph, it's a recently introduced component in the Anypoint platform which allow you to unify all the APIs or multiple APIs into single data service. With Anypoint data graph, you can reuse multiple API in a single request. So basically, you can call a multiple API using a single request basically. So enterprise architect can easily unify APIs into a single data service, and all without writing more code. So you don't have to write any code when you are configuring Anypoint data graph, and developer can easily consume multiple APIs basically. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. Okay, so developer can easily consume multiple APIs from a data service in a single GraphQL request. So what does mean? So developer can send the single request, and data graph can call the multiple APIs basically, get the data from multiple API, it do the aggregation and send the response back to the client. Okay, unify the multiple APIs into single data service. With Anypoint data graph, you can serve the data from multiple underlying API within the single request without writing any code. Okay, so generally you don't, when you are using the Anypoint data graph, you don't have to write a single line of code basically. Okay, so you just have to do all the configuration for your existing API, and with a single data service you can call the multiple API, you can aggregate the data. For aggregation also you don't have to do anything. Okay, then then you can also consume the data from multiple API using single request. So developer doesn't have to write any code to parse or to aggregate the data. Anypoint data graph, other thing, it's a managed service. So basically, it's a complete managed service. You don't have to worry about underlying hardware. You don't have to worry about scalability. You don't have to worry about horizontal scaling. You don't have to worry about the vertical scaling. You don't have to worry about the patching also. So basically, with like Anypoint data graph, you can request the data which you want, basically, not more or not less. Basically, it reduces a lot of development effort, and basically it is one of the one of the like excellent component provided by MuleSoft for for like digital transformation. You can innovate faster and you can expose the API very quickly, basically. Runtime Manager, it's a place where you can deploy and manage your MuleSoft application. It's provide the capability to set up Anypoint virtual private cloud, virtual private network, and dedicated load balancer. You can deploy them and manage the application lifecycle. Then also you can set up Anypoint VPC, Anypoint virtual private network, dedicated load balancer. You can set up the alerts for the application. Okay. Any question? I think somebody is asking something.
Yeah, I have a question too.
Yeah. Yeah, Robinson, we can hear you.
Yeah, Anypoint data graph, does it come with any subscription or is it available for all subscriptions?
So okay, so for free trial version, it is available for everyone. Okay, if you are creating new Anypoint account, right, you will get it for 30 days. But for enterprise version, it's come with the extra subscription. Basically, you have to buy the extra subscription for that, Robin. So,
Okay, and also can it be used in Runtime Fabric?
uh,
Yes.
you can definitely use that. You can definitely use that if your URL is accessible over the internet.
Okay, thank you.
You can definitely, I can show, there is an option. So by default, there are two options. Either you can use the URL from your API manager, or you can configure your external URL also. So there are two options. So you can definitely even you can use the Anypoint data graph for non MuleSoft application also. Only there's a one prerequisite that there should be the API design in the RAML or open API specification. That is the only one requirement.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we will discuss about any.
Sorry, Jackie.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Why I
No,
don't
no,
see
you.
the option of Anypoint data graph in my platform? I mean,
No, no. Okay. Yeah, Deep, you create a new account. Okay, new Mule runtime account. New Anypoint platform account. You will see Anypoint data graph option. For older account, there is you will not able to see that. Okay. For that, you need to contact with MuleSoft. Like it's a trial account, right? For trial account, you will not see. But
no,
try
no,
to
no.
create
I'm
one.
talking about my professional, like my organization. I have an account
No,
with
no,
my organization, and
no,
I'm
no.
trying.
I already answered just now, right? That is, it's doesn't comes free, right? You need to buy the subscription for the Deep.
Okay, okay. So my organization doesn't have a subscription for that. It means, is it?
Correct. That's why you are not able to see, right? If you
Okay,
want to buy it, then you have to buy the
okay,
subscription. Or
okay.
you are talking about the partner Anypoint platform, right?
No, 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 no. I'm talking about like from my organization. I have my Anypoint platform account, right? And I there and everything, and I have
No, 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 no,
MQ and
no.
everything access there.
No, no.
But where do you see the
My
data?
my question is that is that platform is that Anypoint platform belongs to your organization, like for testing purpose or for from POC purpose, right? Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we deploy all the applications, like all the environments here, like, you
See,
know.
I think I talk out. It's a basically a partner Anypoint platform, right? A partner. So generally, MuleSoft
Okay.
provide one instance to each and every partner Anypoint, right? To each
Yeah,
and
okay, okay.
every.
Yeah,
So in that
yeah.
case, you can contact your customer success manager, ask them to enable the Anypoint data graph for your Anypoint platform. Basically, they can do it.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, I have done this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now I will go to next slide. So most of the people heard about the Anypoint private virtual private cloud. So Anypoint virtual private cloud allow you to create a secure network segment where you can deploy your application. So by default now what is happening? So when you are deploying the application, right? So that application get deployed in the like I will give one example. In AWS, in each region there are some predefined network segment. in each and every region. So when you deploy your application, so any free IP address from any particular range get allocated to your application, right? A private IP address basically, and like one public IP address. So two things get allocated basically, correct? But in case if you want the IP address of your choice basically, and if you want to create isolated IP, isolated or virtual secure network segment, right? So in that case you can create your own virtual private cloud, which will make sure that you can deploy your application within the specific range of IP addresses basically, right? Also, why we require the VPC? We require the VPC for creating the virtual private network, for creating the dedicated load balancer basically. That is also reason. So why we require the virtual private network? So basically when clouder want to access the application which is or access the resources which is available on corporate data center or on premise data center, in that case you have to create a virtual private network IPsec tunneling. Also there is one option if you want to do the VPC peering. So if you want to connect some like some resources like S3 storage or like some SAP system which is available in the AWS private subnet, right? In that case again you require a VPC in Anypoint platform, and you can connect both VPCs basically, right? So Anypoint VPC allow you to extend your corporate network and allow cloud of workers to connect the resource behind the firewall, right? And there are three techniques. One is secure VPN tunnel, private AWS VPC peering, and AWS direct connect. Okay. And when you deploy an application in your generally the by default it give a shared load balancer, right? You can see when you deploy the application it provide a shared load balancer basically. We will see. Any question on virtual private cloud, why we create a VPC? Anybody have any doubt on virtual private cloud? No, right? So you will get more understanding. Now we will talk about dedicated load balancer. So basically MuleSoft provide two types of load balancer. One is shared load balancer and one is dedicated load balancer. So by default when you deploy the application it allocated with a shared load balancer basically, but shared load balancers comes with some disadvantage or some limitations. So say on shared load balancer you cannot create a custom domains basically, a custom DNS, and also you cannot enable two-way communication on the shared load balancer basically. That's a one thing. Other thing, and the third thing, like shared load balancer comes with a rate limiting basically. So like depending on the region, like MuleSoft keep on changing that rate limits. So like each shared load balancer have some kind of rate limiting. So basically to overcome these challenges, so MuleSoft provide the option you can create a dedicated load balancer. So dedicated load balancer is the optional component in your Anypoint platform which is capable of route the traffic to the application deployed in the runtime manager basically within the private Anypoint virtual private cloud. Why we require dedicated load balancer? To overcome the challenges of the shared load balancer. One challenge is like we cannot create a custom domain. The second challenge, it comes with a rate limiting. But also why we require dedicated load balancer? When you deploy your application into virtual private cloud, to access those applications publicly you require dedicated load balancer. So there are three use cases right now where we can require a dedicated load balancer. Generally each dedicated load balancer expose the external CNAME which is lbname.lb.anypointdns.net that resolve to two or more public IP address, and internal CNAME which is internal lbname.lb.anypointdns.net. Okay, this is the typical architecture of dedicated load balancer. So generally on dedicated load balancer I have a two workers. So this is worker one and worker two. So consumer will send the request on this particular to the dedicated load balancer, and dedicated load balancer can transfer the traffic to the application which is deployed on port 8091 and 8092 within the VPC. Okay, so that is how. So if you are deploying application on 8081 and 8082 on CloudHub, by default that application is accessible over the CloudHub. To access the application from dedicated load balancer, you have to deploy the application on port 8091 or 8092. To access the application on port STTP, then 8091, and on HTTPS then 8092. Same thing goes with 8081 for HTTP, 8082 for HTTPS. Okay, so that is how a dedicated load balancer works. Now MuleSoft come up with one new more feature, a transit gateway. What is a transit gateway? Recently, I think last week they have introduced a new feature called Anypoint Transit Gateway. I will explain one use case right now, but can anybody tell me what is transit gateway? Okay, no issue. I will. So transit gateway is the another feature which is introduced by MuleSoft, and it is also like some like great feature as a part of, and that is the transit gateway attachment. We call it as a transit gateway attachment. Transit gateway is nothing. It's act as a cloud router in AWS, and it simplifies the network access between VPC on-premise data center and third-party software. I will show that. A transit gateway generally merge on-premise and the cloud network into a single network topology. So generally, like it merge all the networks. So it merge all the core data center or all the data center network into a single topology, into a single network topology. You can add multiple transit gateway in your Anypoint organization, and that is completely depend on the number of subscription or number of transit gateway and title for your organization basically. So basically, to create a transit gateway in Anypoint platform, you should create Anypoint virtual private cloud, and later like you have to create a virtual private cloud basically. Okay, and also your transit gateway, AWS transit gateway and Anypoint platform VPC must be exist in the same region. One of the main advantage of transit gateway is to simplify the network topology and merge all the network to act as a single network topology. Okay, with AWS transit gateway, you can connect on-premise cloud resources, also establish the connection with direct connect using Anypoint transit gateway within the virtual private cloud. You can connect the AWS transit gateway. I will show one use case. I know this is a bit complex, but I will show one use case. So let's consider this is my cloud up. So generally what we does, so I have a AWS VPC and I have a on-premise data center. I don't have a transit gateway. Let's forget about transit gateway right now, right? So we don't have any transit gateway in AWS. So in that case, what we will do to connect AWS, we will do the VPC peering. To connect on-premise data center, we will do the VPN IPsec tunneling between cloud up and your on-premise. So here we are creating two separate network, right? Here what we are doing, here we are creating two separate network from cloud up. So but what we can do, so simply what we can do, we can create a transit gateway in AWS. That transit gateway will connect with the VPC in AWS, and it will also connect the VPN through VPN to on-premise data center. Okay, if there is any other like data center, it can connect to that. Then we can create a transit gateway attachment in cloud up, and that transit gateway attachment will connect to this AWS transit gateway. So now for Anypoint VPC, they doesn't have to deal with this AWS VPC and on-premise data center. They will just send the request to transit gateway, and transit gateway will route the request to either the on-premise data center or either to AWS VPC. So that is how it simplifies the network. So otherwise what will happen, so we have to create a multiple networks in the cloud of basically. So now that will be taken care by the transit gateway. Any question on this?
Is there any region dependencies there where the VPN region, where VPC region has to be? Like another, it has to be in the same region, or it across the transit
Yes.
multiple
No.
regions?
So I will tell you. So I will tell you. This is the good question. I can explain you. So your transit gateway, okay, your transit gateway and like Anypoint VPC must be in the same region. This VPC can be in different region, and this data center can be different region. So transit gateway can connect to any of the region. So no matter. So like for so there are two kind of VPC peering in AWS. One is local VPC peering. So when we do the local VPC peering, when your transit gateway and your this AWS VPC in same region, and we have a remote VPC peering. So when your transit gateway and AWS VPC in different region, and for on-premise data center, we will do the VPN. But for cloud up and this AWS transit gateway must be in the same region. Is this answer your question?
Sounds good.
Okay. So this is a cool feature. So now we will go with some use cases. We have seen a lot of things. So now we will talk about some use cases. So generally, let consider I have a client want to implement a MuleSoft. Okay, so they just want to connect a SaaS based application, a software as a service with like Salesforce and NetSuite, which is available of the internet. The cloud based solution where they don't want to manage the infrastructure. All application must be high available and fault tolerance. API must be secure with client ID enforcement policy, and platform must have a feature like intelligent healing and zero downtime updates. So it required those kind of like application, like you got it. So this is the problem statement come client. So I have done some discovery session with my customer, and he have this particular request. So I come up with this architecture. So generally, I will definitely use the API manager for applying the client ID enforcement policy. Correct. So they want to apply the client ID enforcement policy. Then like I will have a multiple environment, dev, test, and prod. So by default, like MuleSoft or Runtime Manager can connect to any application which is available over the internet. We don't have to set up VPC or VPN or a dedicated load balancer, right? This is a simple vanilla architecture. Here we are not doing any customization basically, right? It's a simple architecture. Let's go with some complex use case. So my second use case is client is looking to connect a MuleSoft application. Client want to implement a MuleSoft to connect the application like SaaS application like Salesforce. Okay, and they also want to connect the SAP system which is exists in the private AWS cloud and database and a resource in the on-premise system. Here we have three things. One, it has to connect the Salesforce, which is available on public internet. We don't have any issue. MuleSoft can do that. SAP system, which is available in the private VPC of AWS. Then database and the other resources are available on on-premise. Then apart from that, they want a cloud-based solution where they don't have to manage infrastructure. So generally, they are looking for iPaaS solution basically. And application can be accessed by the fewer client publicly basically. So they want their application can be accessed publicly by fewer client, only few client. They don't want to access their application by all the clients basically. So they want some kind of restriction basically. API must be secure with OAuth JWT, and platform must have a feature like intelligent healing and zero downtime update. So this is the architecture we will go for. So generally, I will create two VPC. One is non-prod VPC and prod VPC. I will map dev and test environment with non-prod VPC and the prod environment with the prod VPC. Then I will have a dedicated load balancer, because if I want to access the application like which is deployed within the VPC, I require dedicated load balancer. Now the question is they want to access the application by fewer client. So on dedicated load balancer, I have an option called whitelisted CIDR. So I can provide the range of IP address which can access this particular application. So those kind of things can be taken care at the dedicated load balancer. Now they want to connect Salesforce. For Salesforce, there is no issue. So they can directly use the like Runtime Manager internet connection, and they can use that. For corporate data center, for connecting database and core system, I can use VPN IPsec tunneling. And for connecting SAP system which is exist in the AWS cloud, so I can use the VPC peering. Instead of that, like recently MuleSoft has developed a transit gateway, so I can create a transit gateway in AWS. Okay, and I can create a transit gateway in AWS. That transit gateway will connect to corporate data center as well as the like AWS private cloud, right? And that then I don't want this many arrows. Basically, I can have a single arrow from Runtime Manager where I can create a transit gateway attachment between Cloud Hub and this AWS transit gateway basically. So here I can simplify the network more by make use of transit gateway, and transit gateway is responsible for routing the request to corporate data center or AWS. So those kind of things can be done. Then also there is a customer who is looking for use case any question?
Jitendra, can you go back to the diagram?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is basically it's basically for both. What you said is for how a shared. You mentioned that it's specifically for dedicated load balancer. And what about the shared? How this architecture works for a shared load balancer? Can you help her? Yeah. How a shared load
see right now now here if you want to work with shared load balancer, right, you simply have to deploy your application on port 8081 and 8082. Then you can access that application with shared load balancer.
So how the shared load balancer has been? Is it VP? Is within the VPC, correct? The shared load balancer is within the VPC, correct?
No, shared load balancer is not a part of VPC generally. Shared load balancer is for all the MuleSoft customers, basically, or for all the MuleSoft vendors, right? So I will tell you. So MuleSoft has defined some set of ports, basically, right? If you are deploying the application, see, you can deploy the application. So I will tell you, I will show you basically when I will show the demonstration, right? I will show that. Okay, so don't worry about that. I will show about that 8081. I will explain those differences. You will get it. Okay.
Sure.
So here, like, I have a financial institution, like they have some restriction, they cannot deploy their application, on the cloud, and they also have to operate on minimal core. So basically, right now with the cloud up, we have a like we require at least 0.1 core for one application, but they want to and like like they want to operate on minimum cores, basically, right? In that case, if you are using the on premise, you can deploy as many application you want to deploy on your, like, on your mule runtime, basically. Due to like as I mentioned, security, compliance, and requirement, the organization cannot move to cloud-based application. API must be secure with client ID enforcement policy. Then application deployed on mule runtime must be highly available, need to support integration with HTTP listener, JMS, queue, file listener, SAP need to share data across the node. So here, this is the solution. I will have a on-premise mule runtime, which is load balance with external load balancer. Then I also use the clustering, because it has to share the data, basically, right? So there is a requirement to share the data across the multiple mule runtime. So I've used the clustering. In clustering, we have a concept of distributed memory grid, and even you can use the JDBC based memory grid, right? So that is how it can share the data across the both the runtime. And then for HTTP load balancer, we have a external load balancer, basically or like F5 or any TCP load balancer. Then we can enable API auto discovery or API proxy to to connect the API manager in the control plane, basically. So we can apply client ID enforcement policy for that. So that is how the architecture will look like. And this is also known as a hybrid implementation. We have a data plane or runtime plane in your on-premise. You have a control plane located in your cloud hub, basically. Then again, this is the same use case, but only difference is that no need of data sharing, basically. Okay, so there is a no need, only difference. So here I can use the server group. So basically, I have only use cases for HTTP listener, basically, and like for queue listener, but there's a no need of data sharing. So I can simply use the server group, basically, right? Because in server group, each mule runtime is run in isolated mode, but they can be connected using the external load balancer, basically. So external load balancer will do the traffic routing to any of the any of the free server, basically. So here only difference, no data sharing. So that's why I've used the server group. Rest of the things remain same. Then runtime fabric manager solution. So where client is looking to implement a cost-effective solution and can operate on the minimum cores, basically. Okay, solution must be highly available. It must be fault tolerant and having the moderate workload. They have want to migrate around 400 application and able to assign minimum unit of V cores, also minimum unit of cores while deploying the application. Container based solution. API must be secure at a AS and application level by applying policy called rate limiting and client ID enforcement policy. So here we have a 400 application. Each application must be highly available. So if you are with cloud of solution, we may require a lot of cores and lot of V cores, right? And also the client want lot of, like, he want a container based solution, and also he can deploy the application on minimum cores also. So we have a solution called Runtime Fabric Manager, where we can deploy the application on 0.02 cores also, basically, right? You can deploy the application on minimum of 0.02 cores, whereas in cloud we require minimum 0.1 V core. On point here we just require 0.02 cores. So on 0.1 V code we can deploy 5 application here generally, right? So that is how the solution will look like. I will be having the worker where we will deploy the application on the pod, basically. So we can deploy the application on multiple workers. So if we say multiple worker, so application will be deployed on the multiple workers, basically. Then we have a controller, and so generally the request will come to controller, and controller will do the content based routing to the worker will process the request, send the response back to the controller, and controller will send the response back to the client, right? And similarly we will have a control plane in your in your Anypoint platform, and we will have a data plane on Runtime Fabric Manager basically. So you can enable the API auto discovery or API proxy, whatever you want. You can do that. You can also, there's a one thing we want to secure the API is, so Runtime Fabric provide out of box feature which is Anypoint security, which can be also applied on your Runtime Fabric Manager to secure the API it is. So it come up with 5-6 policy like tokenization, checking for virus detections, some text anomalies. Those kind of things can be taken care of is IP whitelisting, blacklisting, then number controlling the traffic. Those kind of policies is available in Anypoint security basically. So generally the request will be blocked at a edge level itself. Now the customer have a n number of non-MuleSoft application API, but they don't have a API governance. So basically they are looking for the API product, basically where like they have already defined n number of services or n number of APIs in the Spring Boot or any other technology, non-MuleSoft technology. So they don't have a great API governance basically, an API governance capability. They want to enable and all those kind of things, right? They want to enable the API analytics. So in that case, what we can do, so I have deployed all these non-MuleSoft application web services I located in on-premise. So what I can do, I can create Anypoint VPC, I can create a VPN, and I can use the VPN IPsec tunneling between cloud hub and your on-premise data center. Then I can create a proxy on the top of your application. Okay, the request will come to proxy, and so on the proxy I can apply whatever policy or security analytics or monitoring I want. So that is how I can enable the API governance on the top of your application which is deployed to the on-premise or to your corporate data center. And I can create a multiple proxy which can route the traffic to the on-premise data center. So that is why a proxy is very important. So when you want to apply a API governance on the non-MuleSoft API, you can make use of API proxy and API manager basically. Okay, any question? See, on Sridhar, yes, there is a need. There is a need of dedicated load balancer when you deploy your application in the virtual private cloud, right? To access those application publicly, you require a dedicated load balancer basically. Okay, on dedicated load balancer we have a whitelisted CIDRs. Okay, and in whitelisted CIDR you can mention like what are the IP range you need to allow. So see, Tushar, runtime fabric is RTF only prefer when see RTF it's preferred like when you have a lot of applications, right? So like when you want, yeah, you are right. Partially you are correct. Whenever you want to do the containerization of your application, RTF is the one option basically, right? So generally hybrid, when you want hybrid basically, so by default nothing. See, I will tell you here. Let me open the slide. So generally, like if you are implementing in this manner, so then it's a hybrid basically. Okay, so this is the hybrid implementation of your runtime fabric manager, where you have a control plane in your cloud app or Anypoint platform, and your data plane is located in, it's behind the firewall basically. So basically why we have done like, so we can enable the AP, we can see a lot of things like this. Control data plane will send the metadata to your control plane, so where we can see the CPU uses, memory uses, the other kind of thing. We can deploy the application from your control plane to your data plane, right? So like some of the organizations say we don't want the control plane. Our metadata should not go in the cloud, in the cloud basically. In that case, then you simply go with a normal runtime fabric manager. If your customer is fine in that, like in that case, I will always say you go with a hybrid basically. See, so good question, Rajiv. Definitely a transit gateway will add some millisecond of latency definitely, but it will simplify your network basically. It will definitely add some kind of would, it's not about the performance, it's generally it is for simplifying the network basically. Rajiv. Rajiv, yeah. So Sridhar, we will discuss about, right now I don't have a use cases for like service mesh. Okay. So I will come on that. So API proxy. So we will discuss about what is difference between API proxy. So when we are enabling the API proxy for the application or API, it means that we are enabling the API governance layer to apply API security policy, managing the traffic, and by default it consumes zero point 0.1 vcode. So generally what we create when we create the API proxy, so generally it is used, generally we create the API proxy for enabling the API governance layer basically, to enable the API governance on the top of your API, where you can apply the policies, traffic control, you can apply analytics, right? So but the one of the limitation with API proxy, by default it deploy one application in runtime manager which consume minimum of zero point 0.1 vcode basically. But when to implement the API proxy? API proxy can be implemented when you have a n number of APIs already exist, or SOA layer for which no control of API governance, when you want to expose the data externally or deploy the proxy in DMZ following the gateway pattern. So generally one of the first use case is very important. So if you have an application which is developed in non-MuleSoft like non-MuleSoft, and you want to enable the API governance, you can make it a proxy, you can create the proxy, and with proxy you can control the non-MuleSoft API. Whereas API auto discovery is also used like, for like for enabling the API governance, but only difference is that it doesn't consume any extra vcode. But generally, this is the preferred approach for the MuleSoft application deployed onto the runtime manager. We will see both the demonstration. Any question? Okay. So I will go with a demo quickly. So first we will create a VPC. So I will say create VPC. The first thing you have to give a name of the VPC. I will say Mule demo VPC. I will give some range. Minimum you can give CIDR block of /24, which will give the IP 250, 256 of IP addresses. The maximum you can give a /16 of /16, which will give a 65,536 IP addresses. I will use minimum one for now. /24. I will select the environment I want for production. I will set as a default. So I will use this only. Yeah. Somebody told me. Now I will explain this. So generally we have a 4 firewall rule: 8081, 8082. So when you deploy the application on 8081, those applications are accessible publicly over the shared load balancer on HTTP protocol. Okay. When you deploy application on 8082, the application will be accessible publicly over the protocol HTTPS over shared load balancer. Now, when you deploy the application on port 8091, it means the application will be accessible over the local VPC. That application cannot be accessed publicly, basically. When you when you say 8092, application is accessible over the HTTPS, but privately within the VPC, it will not accessible over the publicly. To access those application publicly, we use the dedicated load balancer. Okay, so this is the options we need to do, and simply say create VPC. Just a minute. So I think it takes some few seconds. Okay, I create VPC. Now I will create load balancer. Create load balancer. The first thing I will give a mule demo DLB. Then I will select the VPC. There should be one VPC. By default, 2 worker. You can select up to 8 workers. So I will create 2 instances of dedicated load balancer. Inbound HTTP mode off. Off means like you will getting the traffic on HTTPS and it will forward traffic on HTTP. On means receive the traffic on HTTP, forward on HTTP. Redirect means receive the traffic on HTTPS, forward on HTTPS. Okay. Now you need to add the certificates. So I want to choose a public key. So you require 2 keys, public and the private key. I have this a public key. Then also you have private key. In case if you want to enable the two-way SSL, you can upload the client certificates here. And these are the default mapping rule. I will say save certificate. Then I will say create load balancer. Then I have this simple application which is on port 8091. Okay, so I'm deploying this application on port 8091. I will say export. Next. Finish. So this dedicated load balancer will be created. So what we will do, so I will deploy the application. I will say Surat Mule demo. I will say deploy the application.
Jackie, are you speaking? You're on mute.
No. Yeah. Okay. Still. So what I'm doing right now, I've deployed the application basically. Okay. So I'm deploying this application. So let's wait while it's deploying. Guys, 15 minutes more, we will finish the session. I know it's too late for people in India. It's available. You can do that. You need to install the agents and all those things like Tusar. You need to install the agents and it's not that straightforward. You need to set up the agents and all those things. It's deployed. Let me check. So this is the command. You can use mule worker internal and this application name. Let's see if we find something. We got this IP address, right? So we have given 10.0.1.0/0/24. It took one of the IP from that. Okay. So somebody ask me the question, right, about shared load balancer. I will try to access this application over the shared load balancer. Right now, this application is deployed within the VPC. So this is HTTP control v slash. This is test. Okay. So this is my application. Let me test it. It gave me a 502 bad gateway basically. Okay, so this is the error I got it because you cannot access this. Now to access that application, you have a dedicated load balancer. So I can make use of dedicated load balancer. I can copy this. I can say HTTPS. Then you have to give an app name as per DL mapping rule. Okay, so mapping rule is expecting app name. Let me check. Advance. It's because I used the self-sign certificate. You can expect this error. So you got the response back. Success testing response from VPC, right? So So that is why we require a dedicated load balancer. Any question on this demo on dedicated load balancer, or like, okay, now we will see other demo, which is API proxy API auto discovery for how to enable the API auto discovery for the application which is deployed, here basically. We will see that. So I can say manage API, create new API. I can say mule demo auto discovery. I can select HTTP API, continue. Okay, so I want basic endpoint. So by default, you select the basic endpoint for your auto discovery and simply say save mule 4. You will get an instance ID. Copy this instance ID and go to your application global element, create, then say API auto discovery, then paste this ID and give the initial flow. This is my initial flow. Okay. Apart from that, you require two more properties, which is very important. Is any point dot platform dot secret. So you want to pass environment client ID and the client secret. I can get that. I can go to access management. Okay. So where is my environments? This is my environments. This is my production environment. Let me copy this. Control V. Let me copy this. Okay, you want these two property, I will copy this. Now I will export this also. I will save everything. Finish, yes. Okay. So what I will do better, I will delete this application because redeployment take more time. Okay. Then like new deployment. So I better delete this and deploy it. Surat Mule demo. Okay. I will again deploy it. Surat Mule demo. I will choose the file. Then I have to pass these properties. Anypoint dot platform dot client ID, anypoint platform dot client secret application. So if you see run API manager, right now your API must be unregistered. You can see this API must be unregistered, right? But still I can apply some kind of policy on this. I'll apply basic authentication. You can say admin. Okay, apply. Okay, let's wait till my application is deploying to runtime manager. If you give wrong ID, Nitish is right. Tell you what will happen if you give a wrong ID. Nitish has give the right answer. Generally, it is say if you are giving the wrong, so it will not unblock. Now it's saying it check for the API key ID in your environment. Now your application is started. So it checks for everything basically. If it's not available here, it will say unavailable.
Jitendra, can I have a question? Can I ask now, or should I? Can I
Just
wait?
a minute, like let me finish this demo. So I'm now it asking me for username and the password because I applied the policies. Sign in. So now I got the successful response here, right? You can see that. Success testing response. Yeah, you can ask me. So this is how you can enable the API auto discovery. Yeah.
So, so there is a in a let's say that you are working for a product company, correct? I mean, I'm just curious actually. Just this question has been here for me for quite some time. I have my theories, but I never implemented. But I want to check with you on this one. So let's say you're working on a product company. Generally, when you work on a product company tell you have API version 1, version 2 is available both, right? Sometimes like even in Salesforce, right? 20 version 50, 52 is there, 49 is there. Everybody have their own versions for them to do it in API.
Yeah.
So when that is the scenario, if we have multiple versions of API as available for since there are multiple vendors for that API, how do you have this group ID? So basically, every any point platform when you do the deployment in API Manager, we will have a version base, correct? So every version. So in API Manager, if you go to the API Manager, you will be having a RAML version associated to it, right? So every version will have its own auto discovery instance. Is it right? Isn't it?
No, 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 no,
API
no, no, no.
installation.
No, no. See, you can. So generally, you can register multiple instance for one application, right? Then he will have a multiple. See, generally, what happen? Like you have a ID at this level, basically at the API level. This is the version 1, right? So now you have to create a new instance for new API ID. Basically, it will. It doesn't matter. Like if you have a different RAML, right? You can just simply update here. Right now, I haven't used the
No,
RAML.
but
That's why
I
I'm
want
not
both
able
the
to.
APIs to be available and up and running. That's a
Correct,
common.
correct.
So then that case, actually, I wanted both the support from both the sides, right? So,
See,
but
I will tell you. One API ID can be like one API ID can be used for multiple APIs. Basically, that is possible. One API ID can be used for the multiple APIs, multiple version APIs. Basically, okay. So basically, you can create a multiple instance here. I think you can create a multiple instance. I think no. So generally, this is the instance ID. One right now, what instance ID I've used here? Let me check. 1728316, right? So if you have a like another instance, right, for version 2, it will generate a new instance ID basically.
I think you can like register multiple instances and configure it in your property file, and so when you send the
Correct.
request, they will go from your property file from version 1 or version 2.
So generally, like you can have a two instance, you can configure two instance ID. What here, right? You can have a API auto discovery ID. You can configure two here. You can create one more API auto discovery here. Okay. So with this, you can something like this, and you can like your main flow will be of version 2 basically. Like that, you can do it.
okay.
So see, what is your name? Ramchandran. Generally, we create a version 1 and version 2 as a separate application, right? Generally,
Yeah,
I generally do like that. So you will have a different instance ID for both, right? If you are
yeah.
keeping in same version 1 and version 2, but your folder is separate, in that case, you can define a multiple APIs ID here in API auto discovery ID here. And you can tell like this is my instance, this is my main flow for version 2, and this is my main flow for version 1, like that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Arvind, I already applied the policy, right? Like basic authentication. Okay, so Any other question before we start with quiz? So proxy is similar. We can create a, like, it's same thing. Just if we create new API, and like I will say HTTP, just I will give any name. I will say continue. Here you can provide endpoint with proxy basically, and you have to just provide the implementation URI. Only difference will happen in in case of basic authentication, it doesn't deploy any separate application. In case of endpoint with proxy, it will deploy the separate application in your mule runtime. So it consume extra zero point 0.1 vcore, minimum of zero point 0.1 vcore. That's the only difference. Okay. So yeah, that's all about, like, today's session. I hope you like the session and you gain something from today's session. So yeah, so we can start with quiz if you don't have any other question. So Nitish, you can take over this now.
Sure, Jackie. Thank you. It was a great session, and yeah, many people must have revised the basic things.
Yeah, Murli, I will send the link over the mail, okay, after the end of the session. I will stop sharing. Like, if everybody can enable their camera, it will be good.
Uh, so I have pasted
Can
the link to join the to create the
Nitish, you
class.
should enable your camera. You are the organizer of the meeting.
Actually, my infant kid is sleeping, so light is off. So
Oh,
sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm just kidding.
Sure.
So anybody wants to on their camera, they can do that. Okay. Hi Rajiv.
Hey, hi, Rajiv.
Hi Jitendra, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Back from my native, so now I'll be regular.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so Sridhar has made a comment here. Sorry, statement here. Okay, okay. My screen is visible. Okay, so here is like we'll be going to play Kahoot. So we require two screens. One can be your phone and one can be your laptop. So on one screen you will get a question and the options, and on the second screen you need to choose the options through its color. This is not actual pin. I'll be sharing it. So is there any confusion or can I go?
Searching for game pin.
Yeah. I'll share. I'll share. I'll go to the main page. Okay. So here is.
Guys, quick. I think we have a 43 people and we can see only 21 people here. 2 more minutes to go. We will close at 10:33 IST.
Have you shared the pin?
I think 10 more people to go.
Do I need to log into two screens? That's how it works.
Yes. Like on one screen, on one like main laptop screen, you'll be watching the question with options, and on the second screen, you need to give the answers through its color.
Yeah. But it's I think got two different nicknames. That's interesting.
I think we have more one or two more people. We should have a 41, 43 minus Jitendra and minus Nitish, so 41. Yeah, we can start. I think we have a 41 people now.
Okay. So I'm locking the game, and let's start. So game is locked now. No one else can join. Okay. So welcome to Surat MuleSoft Meetup 25th quiz. All the best, everyone.
Good question.
Okay. Let's see the podium. Okay.
Nitish, you should increase your voice.
Uh, is it fine now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So Aditya, Manisha, and Ajay. Okay.
Not Manisha.
Yeah, Manisha. Okay.
Good.
Guys, please read the question before you choose the option. Okay. So, same people on podium. Wait. Okay. No worries. We have seven questions. So, fourth. Aditya's on fire. Okay, great. Aditya, Tushar, and Nitin. Great. Okay. Oh. So we have new people on podium: Akshay, Praveen, and Vikas.
Sridhar is on list now.
Yeah. So second last question.
This is tough.
Okay. So so Praveen, Vikas, and Nitin. Last question, guys.
All right. 41 out of 41.
Okay. Jackie, you wanna say something for this?
Yeah, this is Anypoint. It's not dot MuleSoft. It's Anypoint dot platform, right?
No, actually, this is for US control plane, and we have one more for Europe control plane.
Yes, it will be
Yeah.
EU point dot any point
Yeah,
dot EU.
EU.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yes,
are
yes,
talking about EU one. Okay, EU version,
yeah,
right?
yes, yes, yes. So just
Hmm.
made some tricky.
So
This
there's a
is the
one more for there's a one more for government version also.
yeah, but usually we don't get that. But for Euro people, yes,
Well, I'm just saying, right?
yeah, right, 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 Jackie.
Take the picture.
Please. So Manisha made it.
Durbin laya hai abhi. Oh, everybody, can you ping your email ID quickly?
Okay. So let
Congratulations
me
to all
join.
the three winners.
Praveen. Great.
The personal ID, right, Jackie?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
personal email ID. So email ID which you use for your training accounts basically.
Okay. So I'll be stop sharing. So we are back.
I will stop recording.